Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to this. Hi. How is everyone doing today? My name's Tristan. I am the host. I am a guy on the internet who does things. My name's Tristan. I host Step Back. I had a video come out a little while back, and I am enjoying a delicious, and by delicious I mean like relaxing New Year's Eve with a little streamy poo, just to say goodbye to 2024, think about 2025, and bask in just spending some good time with all my favorite folks. So, yeah, my name's Tristan, and yeah, we're gonna chill. We're gonna do some wins. We're gonna talk about wins for the year, and then I don't know. I guess I'm going whatever. I don't know what's gonna. I don't know where things are gonna go. I literally just made a stream, called it 2024 has died, and don't know where we're gonna go next. So hello. And so yeah, if you are a fan of my content, you can check out my videos at stepbackhistory.com, or just go to Step Back. If you want to support my work, you can do so by signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/stepback. Or if you want to, you can become on Patreon at patreon.com/stepbackhistory. Or you could check out the podcast that I run, which is called It's Probably Not Aliens, which is very fun. And it's probably not... Actually, I'll put this in the chat because this is a fun thing. So It's Probably Not Aliens just finally got its first... It finally got its Discord server. So... if you're a fan of It's Probably Not Aliens, there is now an It's Probably Not Aliens Discord server. I'm going to put a link in the chat for that. Oops, that didn't do it. Hidden use copy button. I'm going to delete that. That's embarrassing. Jeez. Okay. Is that really how that works? Okay. Weird. That seems like a thing that wasn't intended to happen. What if I disabled streamer mode? Would that fix it? Yeah, it does. Okay. Here we go, friends. You can sign up. Become a member of the It's Probably Not Aliens Discord. Have fun with that. All right. I see there's already a lot of chat that's happened, including some super chats that came before we even started. So that's wild. Let me take a look. Let's see. J Lord. Oh yeah. Let's see. We're delving right into the muck, huh? When I get started, since the top of the stream, one of the things I would like to do, because it's so easy in our modern social media environment, and given the sort of omni-crises that we are in right now, to very easily fall into despair and not realize that there are always good things happening in the world to good people, and that, the world isn't... Just because some parts of the world look bad doesn't mean that all parts of the world are bad. And so I would love, and we try to do this every stream, but I forget because I've gotten out of practice, but to give people their dubs. And so people celebrate things that they have succeeded on, everything from the big to the small. This time, because it is New Year's Eve, I would like to start us off with your biggest W of 2024. Let's do that. The biggest one. And then we'll kind of go from there. All right. Sounds good. All right. And then I will read them in the chat as I go along, because basically the format of the stream is always that I am very, very, very behind on the chat at all times, and I just kind of keep reading to see if I can get caught up. And then until I run out of time. Okay. So first thing is J Lord sent me a handful of dollary dues, Australia dollar backs. So let's see what we got. Disney has now removed a gay plot and a trans plot. I have seen that. Yeah, that's no good. Can you see American entertainment going back to the late 2000s, early 2010s period of hyper-masculinity, hyper-femininity, raunch, and gender essentialism? God, I hope not. I feel like if you're talking about like the sort of like epic bacon period of history, like I don't know if we need to go so no is the short answer, because entertainment rarely goes back. It usually evolves in some new direction, informed by whatever is the sort of things at the time. I don't know where things are going to go, mostly because corporations are motivated by only a single thing, which is money and returns. And the interesting thing right now is that basically nothing makes money anymore, so they have to really, really hammer out what they think is going to work. And at the moment, I think that I don't know. I don't think it's going to. I don't know exactly. We'll have to see. But I don't think that even if they are going to like abandon like sort of these like weird attempts at diversity that seem to be like just small enough that they can be cut out for the Chinese audience. Like I think that you're not going to see a lean into those things, because I think that if there's anything that makes the late 2000s and early 2010s media ecosystem different than it was back then, is that it's a lot more global. Like film, for example, a lot of major film, like the reason why everything is a shallow action movie that is like a superhero thing is because you basically can't consider a movie profitable off of its American returns alone. And so movies now have to have a lot more cross-cultural appeal. And they have to appeal to a lot more different countries and zones and cultures, ideas of propriety and such. And so I don't think you're going to end up with like raunch and stuff like that, because honestly, they have to appeal. Everything now has to be so widely appealing that it has to make like somebody who lives in Wuhan has to find it just as amusing as somebody in North America. It's why like the comedy genre is largely dead, because comedy is so it's so so specific to culture and time, so you can't really like put it on a streamer and have it like last for years and years and years, and have it succeed in multiple markets. Not to mention also that you're going to see a lot more of like I don't know how it's going to happen with specifically I don't know about the hyper masculinity and femininity stuff, because I feel like that all that stuff feels kind of cringy now. But who knows? Old America, old God of War, GTA, and American Pie era. Yeah. I feel like you could not do American Pie today, for probably good reason. Part of me thinks that if hyper edgy, hyper sexy, everybody's gorgeous era in entertainment never ended, there would be no anti-woke movement. Oh, you're that guy. This is the guy who became a patron and like was like trying to be like, what if I could be a progressive Gamergater type person? I don't know. This is I remember that. Oh god. I don't think that I don't know if I want to air this all out again, but no, I don't think if like every movie was 300 that it would be that we would have had no anti-woke movement. The anti-woke movement isn't a response to like Gamergate wasn't about video games. Gamergate was about being upset about the idea of women having any agency over their own depiction in media. That was what it was and just a generic misogynistic backlash against any progress made for women in the last few decades. That's what it was. the video games aspect was incidental to the like the feeling like they had lost a thing that was specifically theirs and having to share. Anyways. Let's see. Go take away the Gamergate. Okay. Unbelievable to be here. Well, Cosmols and Bolzen. There you go. Will there be the random chimp event in 2025? Random chimp event. Am I so out of touch? Have I lost? Has me being... Let me see here. Random chimp event. Series of memes that contain grim warnings about an incoming random chimp event. The warnings usually imply that organized attack by a group of chimpanzees will happen at an identified point in the future. Oh my goodness. That'd be really funny. Man, you learn about a new meme every day. Let's see. Let's see. All right. We got some W's here. You helped your mom buy a house. It's a nicer place for her to live and a retirement investment for you, hopefully. Awesome. Good stuff. That's really good news. Okay. Tarbo. Going to break ground on your new place in the new year, supposedly. Only 7 years into this 2-year project. Oh boy, do I know that feeling. Oh my, yeah. Step Back turns 10 years old next year. Jesus Christ, what am I going to do for that? Oh God. 10. Okay, let's see. Junipus Levers says that their WSA graduated university and got a job. Well, there you go. Good on ya. Finishing university is good stuff. I don't. I like it. I mean, like, what's it called? That's a good milestone. Welcome to adulting. Yeah, university's hard. Congratulations on finishing. What's my projection of the Trump MAGA movement infighting? Okay, so this is a little... I feel like I'm... Okay, maybe I only have part of the image. So here's what I think that from what I heard. So basically, what's his name? Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are part of this weird Doge, this like incredibly stupid thing that they've got going at Trump. And then there was both of them have indicated that they have support for H-1B visas, which are a very complicated thing in the United States when it comes to its immigration policy. Because on one hand, they are a way for the U.S. to get some of like the best talent in the world in order to, be, at the center of all of these like, really fancy companies. But it also is a visa that's used to make people in a precarious situation, because people who are in the country on H-1B visas are in the United States basically dependent on them having one specific job. And so very often they have to accept extremely low pay, extremely terrible conditions, so that they don't get fired. Like a majority, or at least a good chunk of the people who are still working at Twitter despite everything, are people on H-1B visas. But the MAGA crowd is mad because they want all immigration to end. They don't want any like people. They're like, we need like to end all of this immigration. They're so mad about all of it, and so it's led to like a sort of backlash. And Trump seems to have taken Elon Musk's side, and it's just like a whole thing. Do I see any? What I see from that is mostly from a lot of these things is that I think it's gonna get, I think it's gonna get dropped at a certain point, and no one's gonna care. Um, that's about it. That's the full extent of my guess is that it's gonna flare up for a little bit, and then but because Daddy Trump said to that took Elon's side, that a lot of people are gonna be quiet, and the only people who are really fighting it is Laura Loomer because she doesn't have anything left. I don't think it's gonna last very long. They know to get in line when the dear leader tells them to, because they're all free thinkers, right? But yeah, because I'm like this is like what's it called? Elon being surprised to find out that the sort of wagon he hitched himself to is racist, and it's like no, that's the point. Like Elon knows that's the reason he's backing it, but yeah. What I'm more kind of concerned about is that he had a fucking he wrote an op-ed for Politico that supported the AfD in Germany, and Politico published it. Anyways, will Canada join the U.S. if a conservative becomes prime minister? No. My take on the whole sort of Canada 51st state thing is that it's Trump ribbing to his trying to basically show dominance, because the thing is that American conservatives just like shows of strength and dominance and cruelty, because cruelty is what they get off on, and the whole idea of this absorbing Canada as a 51st state thing is not because they actually want to annex Canada, because that's not a thing they actually want. The U.S. does not want that. Canada is far too big a landmass. There's going to be way too the actual work of integrating such a massive landmass and also 37 million people into the country, or 40 million people I think we're close to now, is it would be an absolute nightmare. It would be like adding a whole California of people to the country. Especially because Canada has its own constitution, it has its own laws, it has its own legal code, it has two independent legal structures. We have one province that has civil code law, and the rest uses sort of common law like the U.S. uses. We have the fact that we still have a monarch, and to actually go through the process of changing all of that would be pretty difficult. And then also making the 51st state be, by landmass, larger than the entirety of the rest of the United States would be a really weird thing to do, too. I think that what they're more going for, and this is what will happen if a conservative becomes PM, is that this is a sign of how Trump is going to do a lot of his administration, I think. He's going to say insane, because it's how he did his 2016 to 2020 term. He says insane shit, and then everybody freaks out because the president of the United fucking States said this absolutely insane thing, and then everyone covers that and discusses it and picks it apart to no end. And then in the meantime, the US gets a bunch of concessions and a bunch of things that it wants from that country that it's bullying or whatever, and then gets a victory. It's basically it's kind of what Kim Jong-il's whole I'm gonna do this crazy fucking thing, everybody, and then everyone would kind of give them aid as a result of it. It's a pretty common thing that happened, and what the US wants to do is make Canada do two things. One, they want us to invest more in toughening up our borders for some reason, even though Canada has Canada has a virtually impossible to police border. Our border with the U.S. is literally the world's largest land border on Earth. It runs through mountains. It runs through hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of just completely empty nothing. It runs through dense woods. There is a city where half of the town, like literally like one side of the street is in the US and one side of the street is in Canada, and you have to pass a border check to cross the street. You have like people who literally have to cross the border to dip into the United States so that they can dip back up into Canada to go to school. Like there's, I don't know, Canada's border is going to be like militarizing our border is an insane prospect. The other is that they want us to spend more on our military for reasons. And I think that Pierre Poilievre, judging how Pierre Poilievre is basically just the Canadian wing of the BJP, the Canadian Conservative Party is now just the Canadian wing of the BJP. I don't imagine that like there's going to be much issue of Pierre Poilievre, just like kind of like, I mean, this is what conservatives always do in Canadian history. Like you might think that Canadian conservatives might try to sell themselves as nationalists, but I've never even heard of a Canadian conservative prime minister who didn't, at the very first opportunity that they could, lift up their tails and make a full sexual offering to the United States to fuck us in any way they want. That's kind of like the whole Conservative Party's project in Canada. Liberals tend to push back a little more. But, yeah. But that's the thing they want. It's pronounced Tarbox, okay. Hey, Clara got a referral for getting ADHD meds today. That fucking rules. I got Vyvanse about a year and a half ago, and that shit changed my life. It has made me way better at everything. So I hope you have a very good time with it. I hope it works well for you. Will Trump actually take back Panama? I don't know. Like the thing is, like, why would he want to? Like, of all of his like weird attempts to make territorial claims, the only one that makes any sense to me is Greenland. He wants Greenland because the United States has been eyeing buying Greenland off Denmark for years, because Greenland is the U.S. has this whole thing where like they know that like there's going to be a huge grab for specifically navigable waters and underwater oil resources in the Arctic, as climate change sort of is making the Arctic a lot more navigable. There are a lot of territory, like, so climate change is making the Arctic a lot more navigable, and it's resulting in a lot of territory that basically nobody cared about before, all of a sudden have more like geopolitical significance. And part of that is the fact that, Russia has a lot of claims in that territorial water, Canada has a lot of claims in that territorial water, and Denmark has a lot of claims in that territorial water, and so does Alaska. And so the U.S. definitely wants to play a bigger role in the Arctic and express more control over the Arctic, and I think that Greenland is part of that larger geopolitical strategy. But Panama, I mean, like, maybe he thinks he can make money off the canal, but I don't know. I think that they get pretty much everything they want off of the canal. All right. CL, I'm not going to read that out loud. Your W. We gave away about 1.25 tons of excess food to our farmers market stand to food banks and kitchens. This year, you're trying to find a Sikh langar to take even more. Fucking A. That's some really good work. I applaud you for that. That's doing the Lord's work right there. Making sure people are hungry people get food. Especially because, like, I know that a lot of food banks and kitchens, like, they get loaded with, like, canned goods, and they actually don't need canned goods, because canned goods are, like, not good for you. And that a lot of these kitchens do have, like the whole canned food drive thing is kind of an anachronism, because a lot of food banks do have refrigerators and freezers. and are way happier to take either money so that they can buy groceries to give to people, or to get fresh food so that they can give, fresh food and vegetables to people in poverty who very often, due to systemic, due to living in food deserts and stuff like that, struggle to get a hold of fresh produce. So good on you for getting the stuff in there. I hope Polyev wins as soon as possible so he has to deal with Trump's bullying and will ruin his life. Also, we get to blame him for everything. I guess that is one way to read it. I'm kind of of the mind that I'm if the election can be delayed as long as possible, that every day that we watch Trump as president, basically destroy the United States' economy. I have a feeling, so Polyev's whole thing is trying to play American conservative, American social conservative style politics in Canada. A thing that the conservatives seem to be addicted to trying over and over again and constantly fail. But people seem more likely to do it this time just because Trudeau is just that unpopular. But I have this sense that if Trump becomes when Trump takes office next month, that if he goes through with his 25% tariff on Canadian goods and all these insane tariff related things, the US economy is going to immediately go through one of the most fast action collapses in economic history. And that all of the work that Polyev has put in place to hitch his wagon onto sort of Trumpism is, and same with Danielle Smith and Doug Ford and all them, that they're going to find their prospects looking pretty bad when they see how bad things are in the US, and that Canada won't or should I say, not that Canada will change its mind, but the very small faction of kind of middle of the road voters in the 905 who basically decide every election, they will find sort of the state of conservatism too repugnant and will just vote liberal like they usually want to do. I think that if we see in the new year that Trudeau resigns and we get a new Liberal Party leader, and that Trump fucks as the Quebecois would say, fucks the dog as bad as we think they're going to, then I could still see the Liberals pulling out a victory in the election this year, weirdly enough. Let's see. Imagine if Canada was annexed, each province would be admitted as their own states and territories would be territories. You might say that, but I don't know if many Canadian provinces would qualify for statehood. Ontario and Quebec and BC might, but to become a U.S. state, you have to qualify for certain things. You have to have a certain level of population density and stuff like that some of our provinces do not have. Because the thing is, our provinces are very big, and they don't have a lot of people in them. The other thing too that would be an issue is does America make Canada change all of its roads so we have to go back to fucking miles per hour and shit and gallons? I don't know how to do any of that shit. I don't know what a gallon is. I don't know what a mile is. I don't know what I barely know what feet are. So to say that I would have to go back to that would be so stupid. Or go back to it. We switched in the 70s, so I've never been on it. Plus, we have a public healthcare system. We have our own constitution. I don't know. There's a lot of Quebec and Canada have a whole bunch of laws and stuff like that. There's so much stuff that will be so bad and so so much just the whole thing is that the actual nuts and bolts of annexing a country is actually like a lot and really complicated and really difficult. And when you it's like one thing to just like have Trump say a bunch of dumb bullshit about it, but if he talked about actually doing it, he has to like one, get the consent of the Canadian people, and if they don't get the consent of the Canadian people, then they have to fucking invade this country. And I do think that the United States would have a very hard time invading Canada. It's just way too big. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think that more what's going to happen, the way that like the U.S. is going to quote unquote annex Canada, is that we're going to have a government that is like a Vichy France style government that will just do whatever the U.S. tells it to do, which is, you know, the history of most conservative governments in Canada. Anyways. Will J.D. Vance become president after Trump, since the Democrats will likely pick another corporate Democrat? Oh, I don't. I feel like if we've learned anything from the last few months, is that you should never, ever, ever try to legitimately think that you can predict what is going to happen at a U.S. presidential election. 2028 is both very close and very far away, and we have no idea what things will look like at that point. We have to fit will Trump run again? Will he try to make the same argument that Putin made, where it's like, actually, I need to have the Constitution says that you can't have more than 2 consecutive presidencies, so therefore, yeah. So we'll have to see. Like the thing about the 2025 is the like, let's see type of year. Wonder if Newfoundland and Labrador would be 2 separate states or one. Jesus Christ. Labrador has like less than 100,000 people in it. It would be pretty tough to turn into. That might be wrong. I think Labrador has like less than 100,000 people in it. Yeah. Yeah, Labrador has a total of 26,000 people living in it. So, yeah, I don't imagine that they would make that a state. Plus, also, that's another thing that Trump wouldn't want, is that, you know, a Canadian, like if Canada itself, like just Canada, became the 51st state, then that's like probably 2 pretty safe Democratic senators. That is, another entire California's worth of seats in the House that are also going to lean pretty heavily to the Democrats, and it's like another whole set of electoral college votes that are going to be pretty often going to fall into the Democratic hands. So like Canada getting annexed into the U.S. would tip the political balance quite heavily in favor of the Democrats, which I don't imagine that Trump is like to do. Or is want to do. Is there an actual chance and there's another thing too, which is that Canada as like a state would also be dumb, because the whole thing about Canada is that it's a confederacy, and as a confederacy, it means that compared to the United States, Canada's provinces are actually like a lot more autonomous than U.S. states are. So like Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, like all of those provinces have different political parties, different governments, different like they have an ability to overrule the Constitution if they feel it's possible. They have like there's just a lot of like Canada is a kind of a fake country, because it's like 10 like provinces that act pretty much as their own countries, that just default things like foreign policy and certain like things to the federal government, because like the federal government in Canada is actually extremely small compared to the US and does very little. It is the provincial governments mean a lot more than the federal one does. How many penises does Cerberus have? 1 or 3? Ooh. Now, here's the real questions. I'm going to say 1.5. Okay. Is there an actual chance for the AfD will win in Germany? You're asking the wrong person. I don't know that much about German politics. Would you mind giving a brief overview of how Canadian elections work for us dumb Yanks? Is it like the UK where you can call an election early? Yeah. Canada's elections are basically just like the UK's. Where, like, even in 2021, Trudeau called a snap election. That happened. Like, we could, like, if the Liberals have a party leader change, then whoever would run that would become prime minister. There wouldn't need to be an election. So, yeah. It is, basically it's a, like, Westminster sort of constitutional monarchy system. So, all it means is, like, we have a Senate that is appointed by the prime minister. They're not like the U.S. Senate. They kind of run. Their main thing is to thumb up and thumb down legislation, or send things back for revisions. Then we have a House of Commons, where you have a one Minister of Parliament, which is shortened to MP, who represents the different ridings all across the country. The ridings are... Now, it's been a bit since I remembered this, but the ridings, I think, are designed to... Because they don't have the weird hard cap that the U.S. has. So the ridings are designed to... so that each riding represents roughly 10,000 people. I want to say that's it, or 100,000. No, it's not 100,000. Because I think we have about, like, somewhere in the 300s of parliament, like, of MPs. And then, yeah, I think that's, so, yeah, for the most part, that's, like, a thing that you would, yeah, that's more or less how, and we still do redistricting and all sorts of things. Like, there's a weird thing that happens where I specifically live because I'm in, like, a different riding provincially than I am federally, and that's a new thing. That kind of stuff. For a state, it's just 60,000 population, so all but the territories would qualify. Okay. I could have sworn that for states it was a population density thing. But maybe that's an antiquated law. All right. Could I explain NEP and Pierre Trudeau's intent with it? I grew up in Alberta, and our social studies have a very different Alberta-biased view. Yeah, so for those people who don't know, the NEP, NEP is the National Energy Plan. So this was, so to put into perspective, Pierre Trudeau's entire thing as Prime Minister of Canada was that he wanted Canada to be more politically independent, to have more of its own identity on the world stage, and just be more of a self-sufficient country. Like, Canada, when he took power, was still very much like sort of an attachment to the UK and the US. And so Trudeau did a bunch of actions that were designed to, one, create a more Canadian identity, do a lot of, like, Canadian nation building, because he also happened to be prime minister during the centennial. And then also, he wanted to, make Canada more self-sufficient and less dependent on other countries for survival. And one of the things that he did is he put in the National Energy Plan, because what was happening is that because Canada produces oil, specifically out in the prairies in Alberta, and the U.S. Was their largest, we were in a situation where basically, like, oil companies in Alberta were selling oil onto the market, which basically meant they were selling it to the U.S., and making a profit that was just going back to Alberta. And Trudeau's whole idea was that, well, that makes us, one, more economically dependent on the US, and two, it means that like we like the Canadian people are in a country that is producing oil and yet paying like, out the nose for gas because all of our oil is being sold to the US. So Pierre Trudeau's whole thing was like, hey, if you're a Canadian oil company, you have to sell oil to Canadians first before you sell it to Americans. And Alberta had a big hissy fit about it because Alberta is basically a province that does nothing but have temper tantrums for not being the center of attention at all times, and then has been whining about it ever since, and has used that whining for several generations to essentially turn itself insane. To the point where now, the province is basically run by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Anyways. Yeah, all right. Labrador is also really cold and it's a very hostile environment. Yeah. Most of like the people who live in Labrador are either like they live in like lumber communities, hydroelectric communities, or they're indigenous, like they're like Inuit and stuff. What can Canadians do to push for proportional representation? Good question. I wish I had the answer. Because the Liberals ran on, getting rid of first past the post in 2015 and then immediately dropped it. So I'm hoping that, you would need to get one of the two big parties to sign on to it. I'm hoping that, like, it might be the kind of thing that the Liberals might do if they were ever in a situation where they felt like they were desperate enough to do it. But unfortunately, proportional representation is... who it's going to threaten specifically is the two parties that basically have a chokehold on all political power in Canada. And so I honestly don't know of anything that will result in proportional representation happening unless unless something happens where the Liberals and Conservatives are not in control of the government, which seems fairly unlikely. It's like not even impossible. Like the next election looks so bad that it's not even possible we might see like the most cursed Canadian Parliament in history, which is like a conservative government, a majority government with a fucking like Bloc Québécois opposition, which would just be the most like that'd be the most like insane parliament ever. Yeah. Americans tend to think Canada's the size and consistency of Minnesota, which is so weird because Canada is the second largest country on Earth. Which is so wild. Like, Ontario, my province, takes several days to drive through. Like, if you were to drive from here in London to, like, up to Thunder Bay to Manitoba, you could be driving in Ontario for, like, 3 or 4 days straight and not stop. Like, everybody, every time, like, Europeans come and visit Canada, everyone just gets so surprised by how far apart everything is and how huge the country is. Let's see. At the same time, federal laws in Canada are a lot harder to get around versus in the US. Yep. Do you think the next 100 years Mexico will become a first world country? I'm very impressed with what the Moreno party has done. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Mexico is already like the thing is, like, Mexico isn't like that, like it's becoming a less and less poor country all the time. And if it was able to like it has it is in a pretty good position when it comes to like it's also an oil producing country. Pemex is a pretty powerful, thing. It like it's a country that is definitely well suited to be a major power, and it's already it's already, I'm pretty sure, one of the, if not like the most, like maybe Brazil is the only other country in Latin America that has a stronger economy than Mexico. And I don't even know if that's true. Like, I think Mexico definitely has a lot to gain over the next few years. Its economy is definitely coming online in a pretty big way. And it has, like, kind of, if it gets itself into a better trade position, it could definitely stand to improve quite a bit. So, yeah, I think Mexico does. I think there is, like, a pretty... Mexico's got a lot of things that could happen to it, so, yeah. Let's see. Have you ever thought of retiring to Mexico City? They have proportional representation in universal healthcare over there. Not retiring, because I couldn't really, I don't think Mexico would take me as a citizen. But I've been to Mexico City. I really love Mexico City. I gotta say that Latin America in general, but Mexico, and especially Mexico City, has some crime problems that I would probably not love very much. Like, every person who I know who has, like, immigrated from Latin America and Mexico, specifically, have been like, have said to me, like, you think that it's, like, nice, but, like, you need to kind of realize that that, like, the amount of, like, crime that you just get normalized to living in Latin America is really high, and, like, it will be a shock to like a Canadian moving to Mexico, because you just kind of have to, like, acknowledge that. And, like, if you're middle class, you have to live with, like, a fucking fence around, like a gate, like a wall around your house and stuff like that, because there's a lot of poverty in Mexico still, and there's a lot of, like, yeah, it's so, like, there's still a long ways to go that I'm like, I don't know if I would. I don't think that that's a place I want to retire necessarily. Although it's a wonderful culture. It's a wonderful, like, place. I love, like Mexican people are super fun to hang out with, and I enjoy my time when I'm there. But yeah, it seems like when, like, visiting turns into day to day and like long times, I think that it would take quite a bit for me to get to the point where I could, like, be comfortable making that, like, my forever home. How similar Doug Ford is to Texas Governor Greg Abbott. I don't know much about Abbott, but I know that Doug Ford's, like, only ideology is corruption. He's, like, so nakedly corrupt, it's actually silly. Like, a lot of the things he passes are literally just to, like, a lot of the things, and his government's probably going to go down over this next year, because some reports are going to come out that are going to look really bad. But, like, he's, like, all he's done is, like, open up a bunch of our protected lands to his real estate buddies, and, like, he shut down, like, very popular Ontario institutions so that he could open up more land for real estate developers and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, that's going to be really ugly. Let's see. How come conservatives never do a coalition with the Bloc to get a majority in government? Aren't they both on the right? The Bloc Québécois isn't. It would be misleading to call the Bloc Québécois a right-wing party. It would be kind of misrepresentation to call them a left-wing party too. The Bloc Québécois is not politically coherent enough to make those kinds of decisions. The Bloc has, like, very specific things things it wants, and will make a deal with a lot of people, but I feel like they would never get... It would not work for them and their constituency and their politics to do something like a coalition government. Especially because the Bloc Québécois' still, like, official goal is to turn Quebec into a separate country. And so coalition governments is, like, sort of investing yourself in the system more than I think that they can. It's not that that's the thing that they're actually working towards, but it's the thing that they officially say they want. And so I feel like it would not like work for them optically to like agree to something like a coalition government like that. Yeah. Let's see. Do you have any tips for learning French? I wanted to visit Quebec and maybe go live there for a bit. Practice. The best time I've ever, like, the best thing that I've ever, I don't know about French specifically, but the most luck I've ever had with learning languages has just been like, get yourself enough to the point where you can have basic conversations and then just talk to a lot of people. Like, that is the trick, right? Like, there's like, there's a lot of things you can like, learn in lessons and stuff like that, get yourself a Duolingo or whatever. That's always fun. But like, nothing's going to beat being in a situation where you have to speak French all the time. Now, Junipus, you're Canadian, or at least from your super chats, I'm assuming you are. And there is one tip I can give you, which is that there is something called the J'Explore program. It's a J'Explore. It's a federal program that will do like you can do I want to say it's like 5-week thing where you go to a university. It's usually in the summertime, and you have to speak French for 5 straight weeks with like no, like, when I did it, like, when you go there, you have to speak French, like, in the classes, in the social events, everywhere. And I did it in Quebec, so even when you're like in town, you have to speak French. And other versions of it, you'll end up with a francophone like family to stay with during the program, and they're told to speak with you in French. And if you get caught speaking English, you can actually be like they will actually, if you're caught speaking English too many times, you can get kicked out of the program. So it's very immersive, very intense. And I think like I learned more in like that 5 weeks than like, I lived in Quebec for 3 years before that. And I learned like, a fair bit, but I feel like my French like leapt forward so much in those 5 weeks. And then, just the whole use it or you lose it, like just keep talking to people. That's the main bit. How long do you think Elon is going to last in the upcoming Trump administration? Seems like he's crashing out hard right now. I don't know. I thought with all the stuff that's going on, I thought Trump was taking Elon's side. I think that the second that Elon is going to, he's going to fuck up and he's going to say that he's like the actual president of the United States, or he's going to do something to show himself as having power over Trump. And as soon as he does that, it's over. Trump will kick him out. Like, that's the main thing I can think of. Let's see. Will universal pharmacare ever get passed? Maybe. I do think that, like, so, like, right now we're in a particularly, like, right-wing liberal party. The Liberal Party can sometimes, deliver. Like, not like, not to like, I don't, I hate to give like him credit, but like Trudeau in Canada drastically decreased the cost of childcare. And even though it's like means tested to hell and back, did add a pretty large expansion of like free dental care for Canadians that of low income. Which is, it's not everything, but it's not nothing. And so, like, I could see, like, that's the sort of, like, cycle of how Canada does successful expansions to our like to our things that we do for people, it's usually because the NDP forced concessions out of them, and the Liberals very well may get into a position where they might have. There's also there also is like a slight suspicion that depending upon how the election this year goes and how and Trudeau also legalized cannabis. That is true. I think that in the not too distant future, there's like the real possibility that the Liberal Party might be like in a sort of long-term overall decline. And that if the election, because like if the election is really, really bad this year for the Liberals, like if Trudeau stays on, it could very well be that like the Liberal Party like kind of goes the way of the Progressive Conservative Party, where in 1993 they had such a massive defeat that it basically killed the political party. I don't know if that's the case in Canada, and I don't know what Canadian politics looks like without a Liberal Party, because they've literally been the like governing party of Canada for like almost 3/4 of the years that the country has existed. But like the Liberal Party is sort of crashing and burning at the provincial level. Like Ontario, basically, Ontario's Liberal Party is basically fucked. Quebec's Liberal Party, I think, is a pretty bad state. The BC like Liberal Party is functionally its Conservative Party now, and like various other provinces just don't even have a Liberal Party, and if they lose really big at the federal level, I don't know what would come of like I don't know what the like sort of Laurentian elite sort of class of Canadians will do, but that's a different question. But yeah, like we've never seen the Liberals be anything but at worst the official opposition, and then in 2011 they got busted down to third place, which had never happened before. So like I don't know, we'll see what happens, but they are a very conceited political party, and they do have a lot of money, so who knows. There's a lot of regional constituencies that vote very hard for Liberals that I don't know what would become of them if there weren't Liberals to vote for. Like the Maritimes vote Liberal pretty heavily. Indigenous people vote Liberal pretty heavily, at least in like in several provinces. They vote very Liberal in like Ontario, Quebec, Maritimes, Newfoundland, and stuff like that. And then they tend to vote NDP more out in the prairies. But even so, there's like a lot of Indigenous people that like vote Liberal. There's like who knows where that kind of class will go. Maybe it's because the Liberal Party was the party of the middle class and there's just functionally no middle class anymore, so we'll see where that goes. BC could potentially be a glimpse into a post-Liberal Party future. Yeah, that's true. BC kind of lost its Liberal Party, and then it sort of is like now a sort of race between the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberal or the Conservatives. So, like, which would be very interesting because I know this is a weird thing. It doesn't make sense much in the US context, but in a Canadian context, it does. Which is that there's a lot of orange-blue voters. Like, there's a lot of voters in Canada who very often they swing between either the Conservatives or the NDP, depending upon, the various things of the elections of the year. Especially, like, outside of the city cores and stuff like that. Like, a lot of rural voters. And like sort of people who work in certain fields and stuff like that. But yeah, that could very well be the case. Only problem is that the NDP, the federal NDP right now, is not very popular, and is kind of making a lot of. It's doing the NDP's it's doing the NDP's go-to strategy of just having no political instincts whatsoever, and failing every single time at doing politics. Like, Jagmeet Singh is just really being a really fucking up when it comes to like how to navigate the sort of situation we're in right now. But whatever. You're not a Gamergater. Okay. Cool. I can't remember if you're the same person who was a patron for a while, and we had a very long discussion about you being unhappy about not being horny at what if we could have a progressive version of the kinds of things that like what's his face says. Who's that guy on Twitter who gets mad because he can't get horny in video games? Grums. Yeah. Anyways. I shouldn't be so mean. Anyways, Grums. Oh my god. Y'all remember Grums? Is he still around? I haven't been on Twitter in a very long time. It's very nice. It's gonna be another Stellar Blade discourse. No, I could not. I don't know anything. Like, so this is the problem. I have a bad thing talking about like the sort of people who are like, my penis is angry about video games these days, because like that's not the way that I get horny, I guess, and like I don't care about video games nearly as much as most people seem to. So like like I don't know, it's like I feel like it, even though it's like, you know, significant for like understanding the sort of like manosphere and like the discourse takes, I'm just like, I don't know, my I play like, what's it called, I don't play games like Stellar Blade because I don't care about games like that. Like right now I'm mostly playing like Age of Wonders 4, Hard Space Shipbreaker, Caves of Cud. I'm thinking about booting up Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld again. So like, you know, like it's not really like I'm not a person who's gonna play like Nier Automata and be mad that I can't be horny at like the children, at like the people are designed to look like children or whatever. Like I'm just like I just could not give a shit about that kind of stuff. Which is not good, because like video games seem to be like this, like people care a lot about them, and it's like, bruh, I get like an hour of time to play video games a day, if that. No way I'm gonna like be able to finish these like 600-hour games anyways. Told you that about oh man. I couldn't give you like a full history of Gamergate, but I do know that Gamergate got its start on 4chan, and 4chan traces its roots to a something awful subforum that basically either left or got kicked out because they were mad that they were that over a disagreement with something awful's moderation about that they wanted to have stuff that depicted children in a disgusting sort of anime way, and because something awful did not agree with portraying children in that fashion, they were like, we're going to make our own website, and that was how 4chan got started. So it's also about racism. That is true. Gamergate is also about racism. I thought that like Gamergate was trying to do a thing because they were getting mad that they had Yasuke in a game, an Assassin's Creed game, and it's like Yasuke was like a real black samurai, and they're just bitching about it because they're weird about that kind of shit. It's so weird, so weird. Has the internet ever been good? I think that the main thing is that, you know, it's had good stuff in it. That's... Oh my goodness. You got talking about Mr. of Akkad? Is that guy still doing stuff? Is that guy still alive? I haven't heard about him in years. What is Carl Benjamin doing these days? He must be completely irrelevant because I don't hear anybody discourse about him anymore. Somebody asked me a question about Vyvanse a little earlier, didn't they? How much of Vyvanse is good? I mean, I like it. I like that. I like how much of Vyvanse is good. I'm considering taking it for my ADHD. I've had a very good experience with it. I don't know what else to say. Like your mileage may vary. It's based a lot on like, you know, your sort of everybody's different, but my experience with it has been very positive. It basically just makes me able to focus on things, which I'm like, okay, I'll take it. I will say the only thing I could say as a drawback about Vyvanse, if anything, but it's true of all ADHD stimulant medications, is that it very much is addictive, and that means that it's this hard combination of being addictive, but also like it was addictive, and it's a like no doctor is going to give you a prescription for Vyvanse that has like 5 refills on it. Like I get my Vyvanse probably like 60 day prescriptions at a time, and literally every 2 months I have to call my doctor's office and be like, hey, can I get another Vyvanse prescription? And they have to send the prescription to my pharmacy so I can go pick it up. So like I have had incidences where because of like some like mix of things, like there was this one time in the summertime where because of like a kind of mix up in communications, I had to go for like a week without my Vyvanse, and by the end I had like the most horrible brain fog, and like I couldn't focus on anything, and I was just an absolute disaster. I was like falling asleep at my, like I was close to at least falling asleep at my desk. I was ornery. But even like today, like if I take my Vyvanse too late in the day and like I do something like go out, I'm gonna be like snappy and like tired, and I'm not able to like pay attention to people, and it's just like it makes me a worse person when I'm not on it, which sucks because I hate being dependent on a medication like that. But there you go. The old something, the internet makes you stupid, I think that was mostly correct, yep. Caves of Cut is woke because of genders and Q Girl won't date me. Jokes aside, it's a wonderful game. I just wish they would let Force Bubble and phasing stay toggled on if uptime is longer than a cooldown. I guess. I haven't played it enough to be able to know all of the like. I'm not an expert at the game. I never even beat it. My best run, I think I got to level like 11, so I haven't gotten that far yet. I just assume Carl Benjamin and Grums unalive each other like at the end of Reservoir Dogs. Grums has a lot of Sargon energy, so that makes sense. Oh, I will say this. One of the things that, since we were doing W's earlier, I didn't say my like 2024 W's. I mean, I got a job, and so I'm no longer in massive amounts of debt. Like, I remember this time last year, I was in a really bad mental state, and I was very, very broke. And now I'm not, which has been life-changing. And related, I also used to have really bad anxiety when driving. I used to hate driving. I used to be terrified of it. And I got a new car about 3 weeks ago, and I enjoy driving now, which I didn't before. And so that's going to make life for my family a lot better. Man. Now I kind of want to know what Carl Gon ended up doing. I haven't heard from him in a while. And, like, there was a time, like, in 2016 where, like, everyone was talking about that fucker. But yeah, I'm very happy that I'm not, what's it called? I'm very happy to be in a state where I was able to do things like, I'm happy that I was able to, like, what's it called? I was happy that I was able to buy real Christmas presents for my family, which I wasn't able to do before. I like that I can go to the dentist. I like that I can, like, go to, I don't know. There's a lot that, like, basically make, what's it called? There's just like a lot of things that I'm like, oh man, like life right now is a lot better than it was a year ago. As far as like, you know, I'm very sad that sort of step back had to be really, really reduced in what I can do with it. But I guess I'm still here. I'm still doing this. So that's not nothing. And, yeah, I guess I'm just like, you know, I'm happy about that. You don't enjoy driving, but despite living in a major city, you don't have a major, decent transit system. That's the same story for me. I live in a major city, major-ish city, and we have a terrible transit system. And so, like, because my wife can't drive, I needed to, like, we had to get by without a car for like years, and it really sucked here in London, and there were so many things that we couldn't do as a result. And now it's like I can finally like spread my wings and try stuff out. And On top of that, the new car I got I really like. I'm weirdly, it's the first car I've ever had that's like very new, or not very new, but like the last car I had before it was like old enough to vote, and this one is not. And every time it does one of its cute little things, like when I walk by it and my keys are in my pocket, it like the mirrors fold out and the lights turn on, and I'm like, oh, stop trying to tempt me into driving you. Um, and my favorite part is that it's an EV, which is very fun to mess around with. It's like quiet and like tell us what you. I'm not going to go into detail, but it's a if you want to look it up, it's a 2019 Hyundai Ioniq EV. The sort of premium edition that has like the sunroof and the wireless charger and stuff like that. I didn't ask for that, but I got a really good deal on it. So I got all the stuff, and it's still got, still got a couple years left on its warranty for its battery, and yeah. Not a Tesla. No, I'd never buy a Tesla. Those things are death traps. No, I bought a Hyundai. I'm not, like, keep in mind, like, if I had my, like, I was like, when I went to go get a car, I was like entirely ready to buy a fucking Toyota Corolla. You think I'm gonna go buy like a Tesla? I am a, like, this car I have is tiny. It's so compact, and I love it for that. I love how small it is. I love that I like, oh yeah, like, but yeah. And I love that I don't have to go to the gas station because I just plug it into my garage when I get home. The only thing, and this was so dumb, but when I learned this, I had a minor heart. I was like mad for a little bit. But like, so one of the things they don't tell you about EVs is that they've got, like, underneath they've got the really big battery, right? That drives the car. But then they also typically have a 12 volt, like your regular car battery in it as well. And if you, and I didn't know that if you don't turn the car on with like without your foot on the brake, you're not turning on the actual thing. And so you're just draining the 12 volt. And so before I ever got to drive my car, I had killed the battery, and I had to get my electric car that had full battery boosted so that I could turn it on and get going. Because if the battery is too low on on the Ioniq, one of its sort of weird quirks is that if the battery is like really, really low, the sensors that check the power braking don't work right, and then it'll tell you that the brakes are broken and you need to pull over and take it to the shop, and it will refuse to drive. And so I had to get it boosted, and then it's been working fine ever since, and I'm happy. BYD's EVs are fantastic. I don't know what BYD is, but yeah, Tesla's the only EV you know, and you hate that fact. There's a lot of really good ones. There's the Nissan Leaf. There is the there's the Ioniq. All of the Ioniqs are electric now, I think. Because I think Ioniqs are like they're either electric or they're like the new thing that's getting more common, which is plug-in hybrid, which is like a hybrid car that you can plug in like an electric car, so that there's very little, like, you don't have to go get fuel nearly as much. Gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other EV models. The Chevy Bolt. Like, the thing is that, like, the car, like, I think like every car company is like is required now by law to make an electric car, And um, like there's a lot of EVs that are like made by like the non-Tesla companies that are really good right now. Your first car was older than me, 1989 Toyota. I don't want an EV. I want to ride a train. I mean, I would love to be able to hop on the bus to get to everywhere I need to go, but London just said no. So this is what I'm doing. Did I ever see the video I linked on the server of using French whale oil to power his car? Dear God. What a fucking wild thing. BYD is a Chinese EV company. Oh, cool. Because, like, that'd be awesome. It's just that, like, yeah. Unfortunately, Canada put a fucking 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, so we can't buy. It's harder to buy these kinds of cars, but I wouldn't be against it. There's some like, yeah, you can get some really good cheap EVs from China if your country lets them into the country. But this I got this one used, so I feel a lot less bad about like, you know, like if you have a car, you shouldn't just like replace it with an EV. But if you if you can get a used EV, then yeah, that's what I got, and I'm happy with it. London, yeah, I live in the London that what's it called? I live in the London that Jason Slaughter is always bitching about. So, you know, all of the Not Just Bikes videos that shit talk London and Canada, that's where I live. But yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, you know, it takes a long time to chart. Like when I like just driving like the car, my car has like a 160-ish kilometer range if I like, you know, am not careful with all the stuff inside. But the thing is that I don't drive enough to ever worry about that, and I usually like I feel like the most that I've ever driven, like I think I did like a sort of like 1 hour round trip drive with it on Christmas Day. And when I got home, the battery was down to like, went from 100 down to like 85%. And when I plugged it in, it said it was going to take about 6 hours to fill up from there. So, but I kind of don't care. I also love that it's so quiet that at least on one occasion, I forgot to turn the car off when I left the car and it started beeping at me because there's no engine to, like, you know, constantly make the little engine sound. So I was just like, I just left because it's so quiet. But yeah, it's a neat little thing. But I won't go into it. I won't go into too much more because I know that that's not everyone's favorite topic of conversation. Does anyone have any more wins? Does anyone have like a big 2024 win that they had? Because that's what I need. You finish your PhD. Now that is one big goddamn W in 2024. Congratulations, Miles. That is indeed what I'm talking about. You found my channel going through the backlog. Well, congratulations. That's that's pretty that's a pretty big backlog of videos. I've been around for a long time, and my style has changed quite a bit. MX Verta Art got married. Fucking awesome. That's so cool. Congratulations. Alberto reduced their Xanax dose. That's great. Congratulations. That's a huge one. You went back to school in your 40s in your first term. You're almost at a 4.0. Nice. Very good. You found a new hero. His name is Luigi. Oh. Waluigi Mangione. Is that anything? He only shoots people who need healthcare. I'm very funny. So we got about 25 minutes left of the stream. What do we do? What are we talking about? You got 16 books off your reading list for the year, including your first Graybird. Nice. Damn, I gotta go check my Goodreads, because like, I know that I very much did not hit my reading goal for this year, but that's kind of to be expected. With the new job, I like reduced the amount of reading I had to do by quite a bit, because I'm not like, you know, having to be like, well, I have to now read this, like, you know, I have to like read this like 10 books this week so that I can make a video. So let's see. So I'm definitely not making my challenge. Yeah, I read 24 books this year, but my goal was 42. Yeah, I caught up to the chat. That's a thing I never do. And I don't know what I'm going to do. Tell us about your creative sci-fi stuff. I always liked hearing your ideas. Oh, gosh. Okay. One of the things that I'm working on, I am working on a sci-fi thing right now. I'm trying to, like, I'm trying to make a, so like, every time, so one of the things that I run a lot of tabletop role-playing games, as everybody knows. And I've had a few campaigns this year sort of fizzle out and die. But, like, my wife's made a very strong point to point out that, like, I put a lot of work into the settings that I make, because I put a lot of, like, you know, energy into prepping my games and everything like that. And so when the campaign inevitably, like, fizzles out, I've usually, like, made, like, a fuckload of material for a campaign setting. And Kelly was like, you should probably, like, do something with that stuff, because that's a lot of work to do nothing with. And you talked to a girl on a dating app, which was definitely boosted the old ego. Congratulations. That's awesome. Best of luck. Have you tried posing with a fish in your profile picture? I've heard that works. Anyways, so I am working on the first of those, of making it, and because of how popular with the new 5th edition thing, I'm trying to make like a 5e compatible setting. And so I'm going to use the sort of new 5th edition SRD when it comes out, or the new one when it comes out next year. And the whole plan is that I'm basically going to make like a 5e compatible hack that is going to be a sort of like mid 21st century post-apocalyptic sci-fi game. The hope is to do stuff like and it takes place in London, Ontario. And one of the things I want to put in the book is a way that you can make your own city a post-apocalyptic setting, with just like all you need to do is go and buy like a gas station map of your city and then mark it up with a pen. And I will make a guide for like doing that, because that's what we did with like for the campaign for the people in the group. I bought a like gas station map of London, and as we like established new locations, we like drew on the map where it was. And because it was like a neighborhood we knew, we could like associate things with it and everything like that. It was really fun. And then and so I wanted to like make a chapter that's like that, and then also have like a little bit of a life path leveling system. And then I'm going to include things, but like the setting that I made, because you asked specifically for sci-fi ideas or sci-fi stuff. So when I did like a little survey of the people that I was like running it for, they had a bunch of stuff that they were interested in. And one of the things that I liked about the post-apocalyptic setting is I wanted to answer the question of the sort of the Hobbes-Rousseau debate. That was sort of the the core of what I was trying to answer with my campaign, and leaning towards Rousseau being the one who's right. And so a lot of it was like the government, like the apocalyptic thing happened, and for the most part, like people kind of got back on their feet, and now the governments are trying to reassert themselves in various ways. And there was a lot of really dumb jokes that were just me getting mad at various aspects of Canadian politics that I can get into. But but somebody like had this like really wanted AI to be part of the story. And so one of the big things, that I implemented into it was this idea that was like the convergence of a few technologies that I think are going to become very relevant in the next few years that I sort of played with a lot. And I wanted to play with the idea of like, what if AI was more human than humans were, you know? And so what I have is, so like, this is the main thing about the setting that makes it like, it's apocalyptic, sort of the event, as people would say it, you know? And that is that mysteriously, one morning, 95% of all humans on Earth died. They just like disintegrated into dust. And it's as we wrote, in reference to an old movie, people refer to it as the snap. And 95% of all people just spontaneously turned to ash one morning. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows why. They have not been able to find out what the reasoning behind it was, what caused it, or why certain people were chosen or not. And certain groups have suspected that it's the rapture. Other people have been don't know. But one of the things that was sort of like an established controversy in the world at the time of the snap was that in like the 2030s and 2040s, they had this new this company called the Global started putting out these new devices, and you would probably like, basically what it is it is a humanoid robot, because it seems like next year we're going to start seeing those show up on the market. A humanoid robot that has inside a Slotkin engine. What's it called? Like I wrote, like it was like this Slotkin engine that was a simultaneous input-output fine-tuning transformer system. So it's like a super sophisticated and with Infinicon text, which are all sort of like basically what it is it's like it's sort of based off of like the technology that makes like ChatGPT run today, except it's like a ChatGPT that can input and output information simultaneously while continuously retuning its weights and models, which is basically like how its brain works. And then at the same time, it has an infinite context, which was this sort of thing that Google was developing on making it so that a model could use a body of text of indiscriminate size. And they made about 20 different base personalities that were designed for different kinds of work, gave them different bodies, and they started to become a regular fixture. And then I think about 10 years before the snap, there was a controversial Supreme Court decision in Canada, but also this happened in other places, where these robots were given what was called semi-personhood. So they were given partial human rights. And a lot of people, there was like this mix of reactions against it, specifically from basically like a mix of like performative liberal people who consider themselves on the left and like Amish, like a sort of like weird Amish offshoot that was led by like sort of this weird cult leader. And they sort of both were like the most against this. They were like, the like one side was like, this is like a cynical ploy by the global tech bros trying to give personhood to what is just a dumb machine. And this is pointless. And then like the Amish for people were like, this is the most evil thing and everything like that. But then what happened is like, there was when the snap happened, none of the robots were destroyed. It was just just humans, no animals, nothing else. And it led to a anti-robot pogrom, basically where humans started attacking the robots. And in sort of that process, while that was happening, many of the basically all of the robots left, and nobody has seen them since. They sort of like left, like a lot of them were destroyed, but also a lot of them left, and no one has seen them in the last 5 years. And so in the sort of 5 years, because you know me, how I love conspiracy, like how I love like the sort of sociological phenomenon of conspiracy theories, that in the 5 years since 95% of all humans died, people have been developing various theories and conspiracies and like filled it in with whatever ideology they had. And 5 years on, people have kind of moved on from the mystery of it and are just sort of getting back on their feet. But at the same time, it's around the time that like several factions in nearby cities are becoming established like nightmare, or have becoming established factions, and they're starting to expand. And I was just starting to implement this into the campaign when it fizzled out. There was oh my god, I think NOAA was one of the factions, which stood for the New Ontario Authority, which was a like brutally corrupt like sort of bread and circuses type of empire that like was based out of Toronto, run by Governor Bradford Ford, who is like a descendant of the Fords. And NOAA was like basically using cheap platitudes like free beer and stuff like that in order to subjugate people with like cheap goods after 5 years of everybody being miserable, and is using it to reestablish the New Ontario Authority. And then the other one that they had was under, I can't remember what the character's name was, but she was like Governor Christie something, and she was the leader of a sort of an attempt to reassemble the Canadian state, which was called the Sunny. This one is, I feel like this is like specifically for, this feels like it's specifically for Matt, freaking Kevlar Ninja in the chat. this faction was called the Sunny Ways Coalition, and it was this sort of like, there is no war in Bossing, say, type like totalitarian, everything is under control, mind police type things. That was about like, we're bringing the sunny ways back to Canada, and like everything was like happiness and like togetherness and like we're in this together. But like at the end of the day, they were just like relentless developers and capitalists and like just wanted to amalgamate everybody under their foot. And this was like extremely fucking stupid, but they had their big thing is that one of their major enforcers was a thing called the Red Machine, which was this mech that they had built that was sort of like that was like painted with like a bunch of like friendly logos and stuff like that. And the Red Machine was designed to be like a sort of like friendly law enforcement AI system. And it was like it's not an AI system, but like a mech that like helps the police like keep safety and stuff. And basically these two factions were going to start bearing down on London, and the people of London were going to be like, well, actually we kind of built our own thing. And that was the sort of concept of the what about the original nations, the indigenous people? Yeah, I had not figured out what I was going to do about that, but my guess is that the Oneida Nation of the Thames was like the survivors of it. Just sort of the only thing that I had written about it is that like they more or less like they were like, oh, like they suffered. Obviously, they lost 95% of their people, but they kind of just were chilling. Like they reestablished a home territory. They like reestablished their old sort of like traditional ways, and they weathered it fine. It's everyone else that's kind of falling apart. But that's a little bit of a hand wave. But I would need to do a lot more like, in-depth research to sort of make do those sort of properly. The big joke about the Red Machine, though, was that there's this, I don't know if it's a book or if it's like a theory in Canadian political science called the Red Machine, which is sort of based on that idea that that the Liberal Party is the natural governing party of Canada, and that sometimes the Red Machine breaks down, and that's when the Conservatives take over, but that eventually, once the machine gets itself running again, it will return to its natural position of being the ruling party of Canada. And sorry, that was such a dumb and conceited take that I like needed to make it like an actual machine for fun. And yeah, but here's the secret. Here's the thing that I didn't that I never told the players, and was the thing that caused the collapse. And that is that the Global, like a lot of other corporations or like tech companies, had been trying to develop new ways to like, make money, make new things. And one of the things that they had developed was a that they had made some great strides in nanotechnology. So nanites were a thing that they were developing specifically to fix agriculture, because in like, with like the effects of climate change being made more and more intense, one of the things that the tech companies did to step in and help fix things was they developed nanites that were able to like help with like setting nitrogen and like using water, like setting water and making everything much more efficient, and also like pollinate, because there weren't like the bees had kind of gone away and stuff like that. And then what happened is like they got to this point where like the sort of CEO of the Global came to the conclusion that like like he built a super sophisticated version of because of the AIs that he made for his robots, and was like using it to try and like save the world, because he was very much this person who believed that like people like him are the people who are going to save the world. They're like, by the time this had happened, climate change was like getting worse and worse. Democracies had pretty much been like on their last legs in every part of the Western world, and just like everything was falling apart. Inequality was at its absolute worst, that kind of thing. There had been so much inflation in Canada that one of the things that the currency in the game was called kilodollars, because Canada had gone through so much inflation that we essentially used kilodollars to buy things instead of like we basically, like, the numbers of dollars we use to buy things were kind of treated like the way that like yen works in Japan. So like it got so bad that we were basically like, you know, gas would cost like $2 or like $2,000, like that kind of thing. And then the thing that they were going to do is that like he made this AI, and this he made this like the most hyper intelligent AGI super intelligence that he could possibly make, specifically because he wanted to use it to solve the world's problems. And when he kept plugging in all of the things that he wanted to do to save the world, every solution that the AI gave him was like involved basically one core thing that he was refusing to give up, which was his wealth. Like they're basically the AI just kept researching over and over again how to solve all the world's problems, and all of the answers came up with is like governments and companies can't really like capitalism really can't survive, we can't have a world that survives and capitalism at the same time. And the CEO was like, well, fuck that, and against the recommendations of the AI, instead devised a plan that was like, the problem is just something like overpopulation. And so he was like, the world would just be better off if we took a random sampling of 5% of the population, eliminated the other 95%, so that we wouldn't have to deal with resource depletion or anything like that. And then when they and him and like a bunch of the other CEOs all went to their bunkers in New Zealand, and so, you know, none of the billionaires got affected by it, obviously. They all went to their bunkers in New Zealand, and then they pushed the button and erased 95% of the human race. And they were like going to like wait until like the CEO and like all the other like sort of tech billionaires were going to sit and wait until some of the world had reestablished itself, and then they were going to come out and they were going to, you know, do their sort of Silicon Valley thing that they've always wanted, which is that they are the natural rulers of the world. They are the most smart. They're the most intelligent. They're the most, they are the best people. They're sort of like an extreme version of like effective altruism and a sort of like Peter Thiel ideology. But that hasn't happened yet in the setting. So they're just like hiding in their bunker in New Zealand, and everyone else is kind of just like putting their lives back together. And like a lot of like emerging technology right now has resulted in like a lot of things that we think would be gone, like electricity and stuff like that, actually are restored pretty quickly. The only thing that doesn't come back is the internet. And so people don't have reliable internet connections. And the reason I did that is because one of the players in the campaign, she wanted to be a former like influencer that like without the internet is sort of trying to find a new identity in her life. That was like the character she wanted to play. So I wanted to make that, so that's like the concept for the setting. And then I wanted to do like a thing where I'm like, I'll hack D&D so that there's like, you know, no magic. There's like, you know, lots more in like in the way of like guns and like sort of like non-magical healing, and that like all those kinds of things would be more of a normal thing. And then if it did really well, I could like I had two expansions for it I would want to make. One is a Toronto book, and one would be the New Zealand bunkers. So, where will you talk to your friends at shitpost? Well, yeah, we had like the whole thing is like the first scene with that character who was an influencer. We had her in like the sort of central market in town, like doing makeup tutorials as if she was like busking. So she was like doing makeup tutorials for coins, which I thought was a very funny concept. But yeah, we didn't even get over the whole thing about they latched on very early to the sort of Mennonite cult thing. The sort of like mix of like Mennonite, like there's like a cult of like a mix of Mennonites and like radical anti-technology, especially anti-AI people who started their own compound, and in the wake of the snap had one of the more successful settlements in the area and kept attracting more people to it. But then their ideology started getting more radical and more, they started kind of disliking the fact that, civilization was reasserting itself, and they started getting more militant, and they started recruiting people who kind of weren't doing well in the city and like that kind of thing. And it was getting bad. So yeah, but it turns out the AI had nothing to do with the snap. Did you answer my question about the fry car? I had not seen it, but that sounds fun. That sounds like the most Quebecois thing I could think of. And one of the things, because like the reason that I had the AIs do that is because one of my characters, or one of the players in my campaign, she wanted to make a AI researcher, and her character was like an AI researcher, and was one of the few people who had like developed a like relationship with an AI because he worked for the Global, and he was one of their AI researchers, and his father had a like just so like I can just shake it up with like pronouns and everything like that. The player is a woman, but she was playing a male character, so that's why like I'll be mixing it up sometimes. But like her character's father had gotten in a really bad car accident that had basically like severed broke his neck, and he was gonna die. And so his character, he took an experimental like microsurgery robot and had that robot like try to repair his father's like spinal cord, and the AI was like, the robot was able to do it, and it was like amazing. It was like so like it was an experimental machine, and it did it so much better than any human could ever do it. And he developed a like sort of like not a sexual relationship, but like one like a sort of like friendship, deep friendship with this AI. And like one of the things in my setting is that like when AIs were around, they were a little bit controversial, and like the idea of like becoming friends with one was sort of akin to like somebody saying that they're friends with like a cartoon character. So like it was like being friends with an AI was considered like not unheard of, but it was kind of a weird thing to do. But then when the sort of like snap happened, this character lost his whole family, and when the pogroms happened, he was actually like sort of like what's his name? He was sort of like an Oscar Schindler type person. He was the person who like helped sneak the robots out of the city. And the whole big secret was that the robot was actually in his basement. Like the one that he had become friends with had actually stayed in London and was in his basement. And his whole thing was that he was trying to reestablish the internet and reestablish technology and stuff like that. And I had it so that she was, as a medical robot, constantly like sending him text messages being like, you don't sleep enough, you're drinking too much alcohol, you should like do more exercise, like that kind of thing. It was very fun. The ethanol car powered by French. Ethanol. This is an alcohol-powered car. Just think of Homer gassing the car and then drinking the thing. Oh, man. And yeah, there'd be like a lot of fun solar punk stuff and stuff like that. But like my idea of the setting is that because like the big thing I wanted to take away with the setting was that post-apocalyptic shit, like society collapsing like that, would be bad in the very, very short term, but humanity and civilization would very quickly reassert itself. And that without the governments to tell people to do stuff, they would actually they actually make a like relatively healthy and like decent civilization. And that when things get bad, like the sort of conflict of the setting is not the not the collapse. It's like 5 years after the collapse and people have kind of returned back to life somewhat. A very different life, but life nonetheless. But the big bad is that is either people who are using the crisis to advance their ideology, or two was like states specifically trying to reassert themselves. And that's the kind of like that's the major bit that I'm going to try and do. And yeah, but like yeah. And Kelly was in it. Kelly was playing like a farm girl who was like a teenager, who was one of like the rarest things where she had a family of 4 and all 4 of them had survived. And so she's like one of the few people who was like actually not impacted that bad. And her dad was kind of a prepper. So, and they were like on a farm where they were pretty self-sufficient. So she actually like the only thing that really changed when the snap happened is that she stopped going to school. But they lived very close to where the Mennonites were. That was like her character. And then, so that's the book I'm going to make, or I want to make anyway. And it's already 9:30, so so I'm gonna have to call it a night for you guys. But thank you guys. I hope you had a great 2024. I hope 2025 is not as bad as it looks. That's my suspicion. I think 2025 is going to be bad, but it's not as bad as everyone is fearing. There are a lot of bad people with a lot of power, but that power still has limits. That's the way that I'm going to be thinking about it. Yeah. And at some point, drop that pre-order link eventually. Yeah, I got, and then I have to go and find an artist to do all the art for it, because I feel like a lot of those setting books they really live and die on their art. So yeah, I'll see you all in January, I guess. Yeah, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a good New Year's. Do something. I think I might have gone from not having plans to having plans. So good stuff. All right.